and namaste. This is Preeti Adhikari. I'm the founder of the Great Nepali Diaspora, and this is TGND Beats, Diaspora Ka Kurakani. This is where we share the stories of global Nepali professionals and their stories of struggle, perseverance, and success. Today, we have a very special guest, somebody I've been trying to get on the podcast for ages, and I'm so glad she's here. Sworupa Khadka is the VP of Risk and Analytics at Nuveen, an asset management company in New York. And more than that, I think something that a lot of Nepalis find inspirational is also that she's the fastest Nepali marathon runner. So welcome, Sworupa Didzu.
Hello, thank you, Preeti. I'm so excited to be here. I know we've been trying to, I'm like so sorry for keep on changing the time, but I'm glad we are here today.
No worries. I think you're just, you're worth the wait. And I think our audience will just love to hear your story and get to know you a little better. So let's get started, Sworupa Didzu. I'm on your Facebook, so I see a lot of activity in terms of your races and so on. Tell us how you got started on that end and how many have you completed so far?
In terms of the races running?
Sure.
Yeah, so I have always been very interested into sports since I was a child. When in St. Mary's, I used to be a track and field, mostly track runner. So I did participated in 100 meters hurdles and 400 meters, 200 meters. But before I came to US, 400 meters was the longest race I've ever done. I loved, I had a background of competitive running. So I love that feeling of being out there and being, running competitively. But when I came to US, that with the goal of finding American dream, I came here in the scholarship. So the whole mindset had changed. And also, when I came to US, to become an athlete in US is a completely different thing. My goal was to be a professional, be great in academics and finding my American dream in US, not through sports, but by academics. So that was my focus. So due to which everything, I did not participate. So my whole sports background have taken rest until I moved to New York. And I started running a little bit when I started full-time job, and then at everybody else, full-time job, because life starts getting mundane, going to work, coming home, meeting some of your friends, nothing else more exciting or besides work, focus on work. So I started participating in small charity races, that the companies have, and I stopped liking it. And I think what really changed me into getting into running was my marathon I ran in 2010, which was the Marine Corps marathon in DC. So when I did that marathon, I trained with one of our other friends who was really trying to get the Boston qualifier. And as one bucket list kind of thing, I wanted to do that marathon. And then I ran that marathon, and with a minimal knowledge, I have no idea what I was doing, just doing whatever people were telling me to do. And then I ran that marathon in 3 hours, 20 minutes, which was the Boston qualifier. And then I was working for Fidelity Investment at that time. And apparently, Boston, I did not even know at that time how Boston Marathon was one of the prestigious marathon. And then there are people trying for ages to get qualified. And then having to qualify for that race, it was a big deal. So so that led, now I have to run Boston too. And so it just led into one after another. And then living in New York City, and one of the things that really inspired me into running marathon is watching the New York City Marathon in New York City. So I wanted to do that too. So from there, it just started. But I think the Marine Corps DC Marathon 2010 was my the breaking into like really getting into the running, like I would say,
First,
interest.
of course. No, that's amazing. Your 13-year ko journey ma, like for serious running ko lagi. Can you believe how far you've come in terms of getting started? They can like the number of races, the timings you've achieved, and so on. Like, does it surprise you? Ki, what do you feel?
Uh, like, the 13 years journey has not been easy. One thing I think back, I could have changed it. Like, so I started running, like, especially like marathon very late, like after 30. That's why I tell everybody it's never too late to start anything you love.
Right.
So that's like, I didn't think that I would keep on running like this long. When I started it, I just like, oh, like, you're like getting 30, like you wanted to like, uh do something active, like something changing, and one
Right.
after another, like, as I said, like I got into this sports without knowing nothing. Like,
Mm.
like nobody in the family had run, like, been like running into this level or done
Right.
marathon. I had like few friends I knew who have done, but very leisurely, but not like really competitively. So in the journey, I have learned a lot. I have been very lucky to have like, a lot of support from the community, like from my running community. I have come with like, there are a lot of coaches, like elite level coaches and friends
Right.
that I've come into who have helped me to like, really grow into the sports. And then like, experiences itself too.
Mhm.
Well, it
Of
has been,
course.
yeah, so it has been a great learning journey. And the more I get into it, the more I learn about it, and the more I started to love and found out that, oh, this is like something, a passion that I really love. I
Of
did not
course.
know it was my passion when I started it, but now I
Right.
found that, okay, this is something I found for myself.
Awesome. No, Dinsu, I love that you found your passion and you're so, so good at it. And we're all, I think, so, so proud of you. I think, that's a lot of Nepalis already know you, what you do, that we wanted to showcase it for the same reason. I think the passion it doesn't even have to be your career, right? I mean, it can be side to your career and you can do amazingly well. Um, let's take a step back and talk a little bit about, Hatsuko background and everything. Tell us about your childhood and youth in Nepal. How did, do you have good memories from that time? Something that has impacted your life? That's okay, sir?
Oh, definitely. So I was born and raised in Kathmandu. I went to St. Mary's and then did my high school in St. Xavier's. So I'm the oldest of the two daughters in my family. And I have been very fortunate to be like, to have a parents who never like would give us opportunity equally, like in the society, like, with just two girls, my parents must have had a lot of pressure, like, to have a
It's
boy, but they never made us feel like, that like, oh, you are the girls in the family. And then also having gone to the girls, St. Mary's is a all girls convent school, and having into the girls school, I never like I should say like I'm very fortunate to like, have a parents who always believed in the equal rights, like, women can do as much as boys can.
like,
And then like, who believed in education, values, and then hard work. So that was like the values they always installed on me and my like
that,
in to us, and then that's what I carry even today in my like, in my life. um, so in school, like, again, like, I very, very fortunate to like go to the school St. Mary's where we got like exposure and education, like, with every kind of activities, like, and
um,
for me, like from childhood, I was always like very inquisitive and very, a very energetic person, I guess. So I must have participated in every single events that the school gave us the opportunity
that,
for, like whether it's a leadership programs or sports or like,
Yes.
arts, like writing competitions or debate, like, the quiz contest. I have
Right.
participated in everything. But I like, but sports, like, especially track. And then, like, writing competitions has always been my strength. And that's where I always excelled and, did really perform really well to the top level in my school career. Uh, and then coming to, like, again, like, I fortunate with, like, with even the family members. And like now, like, I am like getting into the, like, running and all.
Mm.
So my, like, my dad has me and my sister. I think like he always exposed us into sports. He watched almost every sports that would come into the TV. Or even like I remember, like, watching commentary in the BBC, like the radio, when they did not have Nepal television. And then he used to follow the English Premier League. So,
Right.
whether it was his like office leagues or watching like World Cup at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, or any, like, we were always exposed to the sports. So both at home and, like, in school, I always developed that, like, a deep sense of, like, the love for sports, whether it's watching it or, like, playing it. And I think that's why, like, one of the reason why even now, I just like competitive sports, like, like, and the running is where I think my talent has it, and that's where I am today.
Awesome. Awesome. Did you, which house were you in? St. Mary's
Green
one.
house, green,
Awesome.
St.
Awesome. No,
Louis.
more पनि St. Mary's गएको अनि so I'm a little biased as well. I think, you're so right. I think, family sets the foundation as well as the school, right? In terms of
Yeah.
making us really believe in certain values and all of it. So I'm completely with you on that. Um, uh, Tell us a little bit more in terms of about you running the, like you said, right? It came a little later. That in terms of what you wanted to be in your career, what was it, and how sort of did that journey happen from coming to the US, देखिन अहिले where you are? How was it?
So, like, since childhood, I was always good academically. So as everybody else, when you are good in studies, you either become like doctor or engineers, right?
Right.
Especially in my generation growing
Of
up,
course.
that's the expectation that you have. So my mom, I had, like, uncles and aunts who had been like inspiring doctors in my family. So I have a lot of doctors, like uncles, aunts,
Then
and cousins, especially in my mom's family. So that was the path I thought I will always take. So, like,
right.
since childhood, I thought, like, I will become a doctor. And that's how I shaped my education when I was in Nepal. So I was in the
Right.
track to go to medical school. So after I finished high school, like St. Xavier's, and
That's
then
it.
like applying for medical schools and everything, like it was just like given on you. So
Of course.
you didn't even have option. So, and then in that
Then
process, like applying to medical schools and where you go to, like Nepal. Today in Nepal, there are a lot of medical colleges, but
then
when I was there was like only 2 medical colleges or 3 maybe. Like one was teaching hospital Dharan, and then you have to go to either like India or Bangladesh or
right.
Pakistan or, like some of the, like, the regions around there. So as I was like preparing for this, like a medical exam, like exams and the pressure and everything, I
Right.
kind of like realized that, okay, do I really want to go through, like, all this pressure? I was already kind of, then I had like some seniors who had gone to medical school in India, like some of my really close friends. So I kind of lost, like, this, like, to get into medical college in Nepal is either you have to like pay a lot of money, or you have to know somebody, like a political person, like go through like some kind of process. And I thought, like, and then the option would be to go to like India, like that would be the best, like, the bet, right? And my, as I said, like from childhood, I was always like taking charge of things myself, and I wanted to, like, do things in my own terms. So I'm like,
Like
okay, I'm going to applied for go to US. Like a lot of my other friends, like, were applying to colleges, but it was very, at that time, the information on how to get to
Right.
US and colleges and who will give scholarship was very, very limited, right? We would go to like
It's
that
so different from earlier.
now, right? So we would go to American Library, like a Bible, flip the, like,
Right.
way the short story is, I told myself that, okay, I'm going to try to apply for colleges in US. And I told my parents, if I go scholarship, I'm going to go to US. If not, then again, like, then medical option is still there.
Right.
And then I changed my whole focus on applying for the universities in US, even though it was already late in the game, I already missed all the early
Right.
applications and all. But I got the full scholarship to come to US, to the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut, and that's how I ended up in US.
Wow. Well,
So
amazing, amazing.
yeah,
And I love that, even from your the family, again, you got that support to completely change it, right? It's very different paths in terms of being a doctor versus doing something else, coming to America. त्यसैले त्यो even that understanding or that support is so important. होइन?
yeah, and even like coming here, like I have always in Nepal we have one track for like science or business or
Right.
liberal arts, right? I had never studied anything except like, biology, chemistry, physics, and
Right.
math. And then like, so that was like, I didn't know what accounting was. I never studied anything in
Right.
finance. Like, it's like completely like beyond my understanding. And when I came to US, my another option was because my dad was working, like doing a lot of projects for like World Bank and UN and all, and he was like sociologist and economics, and he did all his education abroad through scholarship, like Fulbright programs and all the other scholarships. So I thought, okay, that might be the path I want to take. And I came to US, then I realized that sociology, like economics, it's like 13, 14 books. But for me, I've always been like a science and maths person.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't think I can write like papers and papers, like, like more liberal arts. Like I need like
Right.
more
Correct.
logical problem solving kind of education. So I completely changed into like computer information systems, where I took both like a business and computer classes. And
Right.
I think that's where I am today in my career.
Awesome. So अहिले, if the teenager Sworupa would see you now, uh, what would she think? What, like, is this something like, do you see, of course, in terms of your traits and so on, it's there, right? But it's a very different reality from what you were sort of working on, like working towards. How
Yeah,
would that interaction be?
I always tell my mom, oh my God, like, when even like, 2000, when I graduated, I
Right?
never thought, because growing up in St. Mary's, I was in a very competitive class, always in one of the
Of course.
top students, like academic. So I thought like people would know me, maybe being a great doctor or like, like with my academic background, but it just like why that today people know me as a runner than like, anybody who were like into academic. I like,
That's
is
right.
yeah. And then it just like changed 360 degrees to what like, what my ambitions and aspirations
Right.
were coming to US versus what my reality is today. And it's been great. And I've loved the journey, and I'm learning like, so many different things every day. And then even
Right.
the lifestyle I've chosen to lead, like until like now, it's very different than what people had expected out of me. So it's been amazing. Yeah, I love
Of
where
course. Of
I
course.
am today.
No, of course. The journey, one sort of, selfish reason in a way that, मलाई personally, I wanted to reach out is because हाम्रो कम्युनिटीमा we're all so focused on our American dream or whatever dream in terms of getting that job and so on. And I think there's such a need to talk about a healthy lifestyle, right? Not everybody needs to be a professional runner or anything like athlete. I think it's so important for us to adopt that lifestyle, mental health, physical health, and so on. And you're the perfect, I think, ambassador for that. And that's what I also want to showcase to our community, that, although like more and more, we have to sort of move towards that as a community.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. And that is also something actually which has been like very close to me as one of the topic I want to change in our diaspora. Not only our diaspora, but like it's mostly like whole South Asian community as a whole. Because everywhere you go, like, you see like they're like a brand, like, okay, everybody has like a one set dream of what you are expected to be in the society, right? Especially as a girl, what do you like? You were supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids, you have to be like, great, like a professionally, like you have all this expectation from the society. And in that race, especially like also I've been living in New York most of my life. In US, it's a very different, everybody is kind of in a rat race to achieve something. And then I think pandemic had changed a lot among a lot of the people, even in like US and beyond. Like, okay, the race there's always something. Like, work is always there. Like, you're never done with work. Like, there's always more to do. And then there's always more to do at home. Like, you sit at home as a housewife or be as a mom, there's always more to do. It's like never ending, right? So it's up to you to set that bar. Okay, what is important? Where is that bar? Like, what that bar is that I should be satisfied, and how I want to balance among like myself, among like society, family, your professional life, your like family life. And if you become aware and then set your priority, I don't think it's something like not achievable. Yes. So a lot of people, I get that a lot, that, oh, you don't have kids, oh, you don't have us, so it's so easy. And
it's also like that you're so right. I think we're so good at finding excuses in other people's success as well, right?
Yeah. And every time, like, I always hear that, oh, like, people think that I have nothing better to do, so that's why I keep on running. But sometimes it's because even like, when you are by yourself, it's like people sometimes forget that you have to do everything yourself. Like, you go home, you like, do all your homework. And then you come to work, you do all your like manage your professional life, and it's as hard. But I think it's just like making the priorities on what you want to put your work at.
Right. I know that's super important. Ani, one thing I also want to ask you on this note, Diju, is, whether it's the position you're in, finance ma, or as a runner, right? I mean, there's some personality traits you have. But, when you look back, there are definitely some skills, right? In terms of some things you've learned that have helped you achieve this level of success. So can you point out like 2 or 3 of those things that, are important, whether it's, jun career ma pani, or jun sort of passion usma pani, that to excel, you need to have some things, right? Some special things. What are those in your case that others could, emulate?
Sure, yeah. So one is, I would say, like, whether it's a professional life or whether it's the running life, there's always, it's like the basic fundamental on how you become successful is the same. And for me, it's like, understanding like what your priorities are, make a commitment to your goal, like set a goal and make commitment to that goal and work hard towards it, right? Especially I've been doing endurance running, and then even at work, unless you work hard, sometimes you can wing it here and there, but in the long term, there's no long-term success by taking shortcut. the hard work and the discipline has to be there. And I want to say the same thing to the kids. Like, we have like a new generation, second generation of like, Nepali diaspora in US. And it's the same thing. And also is what has like, I think it has helped me by getting into the running, like, running career is like, we are always like afraid to fail. And I have always been raised with this like ingrained that you have to be the best. You always have to be the top. You like, when you grew up, especially in Nepal, right? And you came to US and then to be in the podium or to be in the C-suite, it's hard. And you have to sacrifice so many things to get there. And whether you really want to get there or not, like, it's a lot of balance and it's a lot of hard work, right? The talent can be put you like at one point, but then there are all these other aspects, like, you have to be lucky too, timing and a lot of like, aspects to it. And then what running has helped me is to take a risk and feel it. Like you feel it, like, run a race, feel it, and it helps me to get back again to it. Like, I've learned so many things in the hard way. So it has led me that channel to like be ready to fail and try new things and then said like what I really want to do and what my real passion is and drive it there. So getting in that perspective, like having that mindset open from my running side of my life has helped me to think differently towards my professional life, to like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I don't want to. Like if I get like looking for the job, okay, fine, I don't want to do it. If I feel like that's not something I want to do, then I don't do it. Like, where I want to put my effort and where I want to like find that space where you think like, you really want to work hard and then like be successful at. So of course. Yeah. So that is one thing. And then like, finding your, and then also like consistency is another thing. Like, you have to be consistent on, and I think that is like a lot of the Nepalese, like among my friends, among my family. Oh, let's do this. And then we get like all energetic. Even like this diaspora thing, we have, I've seen so many like, group of people who started the platform. Let's do this. Everybody comes together, like, for a few months and it dies out, right? So there's no like consistency is the key.
Of course. This is why I so agree on in terms of all of this. And I hope our community members understand that, right? That it's important to prioritize as well as being consistent. And this, but when luck also comes in, that hard work is important.
Yeah, and also one thing is also हाम्रो Nepali society ma people still like reluctant to ask for help, like reach out and ask, like, so I like even myself, right? I always fear like if I ask somebody for like, maybe ask something, I'm afraid to hear that no answer, right? But I think over the time I've heard, like I've learned myself, yeah, it's okay to ask. It's okay to reach out for support. And especially with the mental health, like whatever we are going at work and like everywhere else. If just be keep an open mindset that if somebody says no, it's okay. Like, you can ask somebody else or maybe like understand that the person is not like against you or not like meaning not to help you. Maybe the situation or the timing or, what they have at that time might not help, like, not be available to help you, but don't judge and then like, never like reach out to anybody else or to another person, the same person because they said no once, right? So just like, always seek out help from your community, from like, other Nepalese or friends or family members for any help you need, like whether it's professional or whether it's like self, in your personal life.
No, and I think that's great advice. And I think I'm like saying with the Great Nepali Diaspora, one thing that I think energizes us is seeing that. कि अहिले चाहिँ I think people are बिस्तारै maybe because they don't have the baggage that we do, right, in terms of overthinking and so on. People are sort of alikiti out there. People are seeking help as well as helping others. पनि के त्यो where we had to struggle and figure things out on our own. अहिले चाहिँ बिस्तारै I think that maybe the time अहिले is right in terms of that. तर त्यो अहिले अलि exciting पनि छ in terms of what's happening. It's one thing I wanted to ask you is, you're running के उसमा होइन, of course it's so glamorous to see the wins and then the numbers and so on. But there's also the not so glamorous part of it होइन, जस्तो injuriesहरू, जस्तो in terms of the real time commitment you have to practice and so on होइन. For you, how do you deal with once there's like injuries or त्यस्तो cases, how do you deal with it, not just physically but mentally पनि, and how do you motivate yourself to come back time and again?
Yeah, it's like really hard. As I say, a lot of people think I don't even work because they see me posting in social media, like somewhere in the mountain or always running somewhere else. I'm like, do you even work or do you have a job? You make like a judgment on what people see out there, right? So, but it's a very, very hard and in especially like a balance, especially as a full-time professional living in New York City, it's very, very hard. So one thing that has really helped is, as I said before, I've always been inspired by sports, and I follow a lot of athletes. I read and watch documentaries and listen to podcasts about the stories about their life. And as is like when we hear about Tom Brady or Michael Jordan, they're like all this glamour life like outside, but there are a lot of Ronaldo, right? So there are a lot of hardship. There are a lot of moments where they struggle. There are a lot of athletes are coming out with the mental health crisis and all that thing. So one thing is finding I have learned, especially your question on the injuries, especially I started running really late. I had I was always athletic growing up, but again, coming back when you're always 30 and then trying to do all these things with no education, not knowing. I've learned, I would be honest to say, I've learned a lot of things hard way. And and then I also think I've got injured many times, and then now I'm 40 and over. So as a woman to be in the sports after 40, it's even, there are a lot of things, even in US, people do not talk about it. And they are only now that they are athletes who are over 40, who are still performing and then in the highest level. So I do follow all that story and then read a lot about it. I myself had gone through injuries, I had broke my femur, it took me 2 years to recover. Everybody told me, okay, you will not be able to run again. But I think one thing is, because I've followed and seen and heard stories about all these athletes, one thing is, that is something I love. And I believed in patience and believing in myself. So of course, you go through roller coaster of emotions in the process. But I think to have that patience, positive outlook, and believing in yourself that what we can I can do it and I can come back to it. You can always, because especially these days, we have a lot of resources. There are a lot of support group. And again, I have been very, very lucky in my own life to have a really supporting family who believes what my passion is. They never stop me on doing. Although my moms go crazy sometimes, and I give sleepless nights to her, but she still supports me every day. And then my sister, same thing, she has been my biggest cheerleader. And then and then I have been very lucky to have a amazing coach, doctors and rehabs, and the friends who have always been supporting
Right.
me to get back stronger. And that really motivates you. Um, Especially injury, I think lot of the, especially knowing a lot of our Nepali diaspora people, don't try to, and I have done that myself, don't try to be
And
doctor by yourself. I
mm,
think we should always
exactly.
get a medical, a professional help if something is bothering you, whether it's a knee or if hip, or if just something. So, take that
Right.
injury as a learning, every time I've injured myself, I've learned a new weakness in my body where I got the opportunity to fix it. And
Of
then the
course.
rehab, and never underestimate the importance of rehab, because I wouldn't have been running today if I had not believed, and believed in rehab and worked really hard to get myself back to it.
Awesome, awesome. No, that's super important. And you're right. पहिला पहिला देखि भन्थ्यो नि नेपालीहरू are all doctors, right? And even if they don't have the degree, they're all doctors. So that it makes sense to, especially injuries and all of it go लागि चाहिँ makes sense to, really go to professionals. It's one thing I sort of want to ask Ma, especially, for people that are trying to have, a career path, but also a passion, something that they're passionate about, something, especially sports related and so on, whether they're in Nepal or here. Now, I see a lot of, it's exciting to see a lot of people on, मेरो friends group or that have started running, that are doing something that's, pushing their limits in a way. What is your sort of advice to people that are just starting out, whatever age they're in, whether they want to do it personally, sadly, or they want to sort of go on the competitive side?
Sure, for anything, as I said before, it's never late to start anything. A lot of the people telling me, oh, I've never played this before, I never tried this before, I've never run this before. So if something you want to try, just give it a shot. It's never late. What the worst thing can happen, right? And never be afraid to fail. If you do not complete one race, there's another one. Or if you're not good on this, maybe you will find something else. So you just learn and then figure out what might be the real thing that you are good at, because unless you try, you won't find out. And then another thing, the biggest thing I'll tell everybody is consistency. Whether it's art or music or sports, it's consistency. So you cannot oh, I want to do it, and then I know I have every time I post about my races, I get 10 people, oh, I want to run this, can you help me? And then after 2 weeks, everybody disappears, right? So so it's consistency is the key. I know it's not easy. You have to balance family, professional life, what you want to do. But I think for me, I have taken this as, okay, sometimes it's the investment you do towards a health and what you want, what you love in your life. And it doesn't take all day. It's 1 or 2 hours of the day that you can focus yourself. Especially now, we are all live in this gadget and computer and all this life. And running is actually one of the channel that I use to I don't have to look at the phone, I don't have to answer email, I'm out there in the nature. I'm enjoying being out, and then enjoying the nature and the outdoors, and while making working towards my fitness. So just think from that perspective. And then again, discipline is also the key. So setting the goals. So as you do for your studies or your work or anything, so just set a goal and then just like, work towards it, like, have a commitment to get to that goal.
Awesome. No, that's super important. I think, everybody gets excited about starting something. That finishing that is always a challenge, right? It tests you on so many levels. Next question I have, Dizu, is in terms of what you were talking about earlier, right? In terms of, there have been so many diaspora organizations, especially around New York, that have formed, that, you've been a part of, that we've all, seen and heard and so on. Our hope with TGND is that it is sustainable and it actually sticks. I know. What is your advice to me and, people that are sort of trying to build this out in terms of you've seen, learned, or seen that are, things that we could avoid or things that we could really work on?
I think like, when we like, as I said, we are like fourth generation of people really into the professional fields in like, more the bigger groups. When I came to like move to New York from Connecticut around early 2000. So there were like a lot of us who really wanted to like, at that time, everybody wanted to network. It was a lot smaller community of Nepali at that time, and it was easier. But also we did not have the platform that where we have today with like, with the social media, with like, all the internet, like globalization. So I think again, like consistency is the key. So it's like amazing that you have taken like, as you said, like, we talked about like commitment. You had like, I feel like you have made a commitment as, okay, this is something I do as my full-time thing, like my priority, and I want to work towards it. I think that's already a huge, and you've already started the platform. And few things we have to do is like, more like create more like a support groups, like, more like sometimes the information, there are too many information and too many groups, like how to like, give like make minimal, right? Like so that the information burden is not there. People know like where exactly to go. And then and networking too, we can use like a different networking events. It doesn't have to be happy hour all the time. It doesn't have to be like, some kind of like event or around like, some venue. You can be like, you can have like a variety of, events. Can be like hiking events. Actually, that's how like I was training one of my races in Bear Mountain, no, in Beacon Mountain. And then all of a sudden, I see this group of like young Nepalese, like, like talking to Nepal in Nepali, that, oh, we are part of like, this Nepali diaspora. This is an organized hiking. And I was like very excited because every time I go and train there, I never see any another Nepali. So, like, things you are doing, it's already great. I think people need to like a more participation, so people know that it's there is important. And I think like sharing stories, like different people sharing their different stories, not from the same background, but from different areas. I think that will be very inspiring for people to see that and get connected.
Awesome. No, thank you, Dizu. And I was really excited when I saw the group, the hiking group, and you met them. The one sort of initiative that we're hoping to really start is on the on the health side of things, whether it's hiking or running or even walking. I think just normalizing that for our community, right? And I think now that we have a critical mass, if we start doing it and making it a part of our lives, right? Whether it's even just going for a 30-minute walk, right? It's and you could have you could even just talk to people and network while you walk or hike and so on. So, and I will keep you updated. You definitely have to, especially in New York, my boy, and you definitely have to be involved. Tara, just to wrap up our show, Ditsu, I sort of want to get your views in terms of you talked about diaspora organization like ours, right, in terms of making it sustainable. Tara, from where you are right now, how can we really help two things? एउटा चाहिँ people in Nepal, whether, any sort of USMA, and our diaspora community. How can, what can we do?
So diaspora, so when you say helping Nepal, people in Nepal, from like what perspective?
Just in terms of, experts that have, gone abroad, studied, worked, and so on. Individual level मा चाहिँ, or even as, a collective, होइन, TGND जस्तोको मा चाहिँ, where do you see, and you do go to Nepal often, even for running and so on. Where do you see places where we can plug in हाम्रो यो expertise and, whether it's mentors or experts and so on? One is to Nepal, and second is हाम्रो diaspora uplift गर्न, what can be done?
Yeah, so first of all, I think we need to first strengthen the diaspora, like the community, sense of community ourselves, because as I said, now we have a much bigger Nepalese community doing different things, right? So depending on which community and who you talk to, there's a different like a branding of Nepalese, right? So if you go like, one, like when I go to Colorado or Washington State, it's like, when I say Nepal, people think I'm like Sherpa. I lived in the mountain. Every time I do a mountain race and I do good, they said like, oh yeah, because you live in the mountains.
Your dreams,
like, no, I didn't even see snow until I came to US. But and
right.
like I wasn't in high altitude that people think I lived in the Everest. I did not, right? So we need to change the narrative of our of our identity. And then if you go to another like aspects, there are a lot of like other jobs, like people doing like a lot of, so like if I go to Jackson Heights, people will identify you differently. If you go to like DC, people will identify differently, right? So I think we need to have a narrative of what Nepal, like how we brand ourselves in the Nepali diaspora, not only to Nepalese people, but to outside, like, in the bigger, like non-Nepali community too, right? So that is one key. And then a second one is keeping ourselves out there, like whether it's, I know like now we have a lot of Nepalese people doing great in corporate level, they are in more decision. Again, we are nowhere close to where like our neighbors like India, China, like all in the decision making in the, like a higher C-suite level. But there are many, many Nepalese who have done great, like, started their business, whether small businesses or the big businesses or where they are in the executive level. So use that, like, networking, and then like a mentorship and support system, and how that get passed to like, upcoming, like a newer generation of people. And third is also like, as running, like I'll give you like, everywhere I go, so many times I'm the only Nepalese person in the like races, and a lot of like I see like our friends, like kids and all, they are like upcoming second generation, or they are like teenage. They are still like soccer and swimming. They're like only like focused into one or two big games, like getting scholarship. But that's the most competitive sports to get scholarship and make big, right? Like baseball, football, or like, basketball or soccer. So like open the horizon to try and let like, explore like what all the other like, options are there, and then use whether it's a culture, like, or sports or anything to connect ourselves. Because I have right now, like whether it's UK, like other part of the world, like everywhere I travel in Europe or other states, I have been able to connect to Nepalese who I never knew before, just because of my running, and, people like asking me, we all trying to have a, goal towards like running a race, or like, doing some adventure work. So that, that is a great like opportunity to use ourselves to network with each other. And then once we have that strength, I think in Nepal, we can use the stories where like our friends have moved to Nepal. It doesn't have to be like, from the technology company to like, even like far, like agriculture, like farming, like couple of people I know, like from my friends, they have left their financial job over here to start the farming, like,
Right,
organic
right.
farming in Nepal, and they're doing great. So in different sectors, one of the thing myself is trying to change how, especially like women in sports in Nepal, it has been a very difficult road. So that is one thing I'm very passionate about, how I can change, like, sports and exposure, like expose Nepal to the outer world in terms of
Right.
like, sports. So that is also like, one thing, because Nepal has been great in trekking and, like the mountaineering, like from the perspective, like the West perspective, but we have a like great talented athletes, especially in mountain running, trail running, any like endurance sports. And then like especially like being women to be like, in the sports in Nepal with from a lot of financial aspect, like,
Exactly.
the training, it's
And
very
society goes pani, right? It's
right.
hard.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something like, I really want to change and something I want to do. But I think just like information sharing and sharing stories is very important.
Of course, of course. And I think just my, I guess, suggestion, or, you when you talk about, empowering female athletes, especially in Nepal and so on, I think it's, त्यो best practices त्यो पनि छ तर in general, I think our communities also need to fund these things, okay? Right? I feel like a lot can happen if people don't just say, "Oh, I support women empowerment," but they don't do anything about it, right?
Mhm.
I think it's also time for our community to say, okay, whatever it is, whether it's at sports or anything like that, if they really want Nepali women to succeed, I think there's also a need to actually you know uh, put their money
Mhm.
behind it, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But on that note, Sworupa Diju, thank you so much. This is, I've always been so inspired by you that I think now we have this opportunity to really, show our audience, our community about what you've achieved, and that everybody can sort of move towards that. So thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. It was great talking to you over here. I know like we're supposed to catch up soon, hopefully. But
Yes.
yeah, this is amazing. I'm really excited that you have started this, taken this step towards like building the Nepali diaspora, and good luck with everything you are doing.
Thank you, Dizu. Thank you, Dizu. I hope to see you very soon in person in New York. Until then, good luck with everything, and uh, keep inspiring all of us. And for our audience, thank you for listening, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.